Phil, you ever have that experience when you log into a Zoom and everything suddenly goes all max headroom and you want to tell people to tune in to Network 23, the network that's a real mind blower?
That's a reference from way back.
Yeah. Yeah. I was introduced to Max Headroom by Back to the Future and then went and watched what I could in the days of VHS tape and became a big, big fan of Max Headroom. And the number one thing that we're going to need, Phil, for the podcast to survive is some of those blip, 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 blip verts. It'll be a reference for 25 people, but those 25 people all listen to the show.
Emergency podcast. Better did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, oh yeah, shut up, oh yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. Like, somehow your co-host is going to drop a reference that has you scrambling back to your MTV watching days when MTV was quite relevant and interesting in the mid-'80s. Moisés, how are you doing? And you've taken me back nearly 40 years. That's alarming.
Hey, I love Max Headroom. Any opportunity to reference Max Headroom, I take. And especially when you have technical difficulties, when both sides of a Zoom call look like you are Max Headroom and your co-host is Max Headroom. It just takes me back to the glory days of Matthew Frewer saying, how can you tell a network executive is lying? His lips move. And what's the other thing that relevant to the current media landscape? Well, most people would agree that censors are a silly breed. Interesting how relevant things from 40 years ago are.
Yeah, before South Park, there was this. So speaking of taking me back to my childhood, Austin played the Seattle Sounders this weekend. That was quite a game. And let me take you back to the 60th minute of that match. We're in the press box. They're about to bring in Jesus Ferreira and Jordan Morris as subs, as fresh legs, an hour into that match. And what did I say? We'll just go ahead and admit this here. We'll just go ahead and lay it out for the people. What did I say?
Phil, usually, like, as a Meisnerist actor, I usually have a little bit of time to inhabit the scene and the moment before and my character and his motivations, but I don't need
this is improv.
I don't need it
this
here.
This is improv. We're dropping right into it.
It's not improv. It's recall. I'm recalling towering man of principle, of thorough scholarly vigor, and his voice rumbled like a low thunder. We're going to lose this match.
Yeah. I think I said we're losing this.
I give it a little bit of Oliver Reed with an American accent.
I mean, they'd been scored on 30 seconds into the second half.
Yeah.
That sub came on. Things were not looking good. And then all of a sudden, they hung in. Brad Stuver made some excellent saves, as he does. CJ Fodry engineered a game-winning goal, as he does, heading it over to Murdo Azuni, who was not offside. Never a question for a second. Don't know where that came about. And all of a sudden, we have our second miracle win in the space of 5 days? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days or 5 days, depending on how you count. But yeah, it's pretty remarkable what happened in that game there. And again, we saw it in the Open Cup. We were all thrilled about that. That had real stakes. Of course, there's a final on Wednesday, which we all get to go to at Q2 Stadium because of that happening. The Seattle game may be significant when it comes to the playoffs because, again, we've gotten a little bit into playoff permutations. I don't know that Austin and Seattle are necessarily going to run into each other in the playoffs, but it certainly could happen. But it gets Austin to this wonderful point with this game against RSL, which we're going to get to in a little bit here, where if they win or if they draw or if they even lose, if a certain number of results happen elsewhere in the league, they go to the playoffs. Clinch playoffs for the second time in their history. Of course, 2022 was the first. They have not been there before or since. So really, really exciting, really good time to be an Austin FC fan this year. Much, much better than, say, during the doldrums of May.
I think, I mean, something that I may have said it on the previous episode before the Seattle match, may have just said it between us. There is a different team that shows up sometimes this season, and it's a matter of that team continuing to show up through the end of this season. And I think
Right.
the fumes and vibes and energy of hosting this Open Cup final, I think directly contributed to where that Seattle win came from. Now, one of the things that is hotly contested is, was that a 3-4-3? Was that a 5-2-3? Was that a this formation, that formation? However, the formation really ended up rolling out, the way that they played it with three center backs is something that feels to me like the system of play that these players, that this coach, that this organization is really coalescing well around. You can have a Julio Cascante or a Brendan Heinzeich or an Alexander Svatok. You can have any of these guys have a momentary blip out, and they've got two guys also helping shore up the central defense. And I think honestly, that's been one of the missing keys throughout the season is playing with what I consider a 5-back. Some people would say is a 3-back with 4 midfield or wing back. However you want to formalize it. To me, the importance is the way that these guys showed up for each other, got each other's backs. And soccer is a game of mistakes. There are a million mistakes that happen in one 90-minute match, every single match. Something that you can classify as a mistake. It's a matter of how you pick up and keep moving and keep going. And I think having that additional fortification at the back is something that has been missing the whole season. And I think that's what Nico Estevez has figured out they really need.
Yeah, we're even getting Djordjevic into the mix, and he's barely been here. So that's a good thing to see. Now they can play a 3 center back system because they have more than 3 center backs, which they haven't had for a lot of the year. And again, we've kind of gotten some hints that maybe we're going to see just a more traditional 2 center back, 2 fullback system on Saturday against RSL. But we know that they can go to that 5-back system if they really need to. And it's worked well in the last couple of games for sure. So just your overall thoughts about that Seattle match and what it means, other than it's really nice to see Jesus Ferreira not score in Q2, because when he scores in Q2, that's usually pretty bad unless he's doing it for the US team.
Here's the thing is I have to gloat a little bit that I felt lonely going into this match going, I really think Austin can win this. After beating one of the best teams in the league, I think that Austin can also beat another one of the best teams in the league. And this is something that I got into in the first iteration of the Austin's remaining opponents article, in that Schmetzer was going to have to do some rotation. And there was going to be some Leagues Cup championship hangover. And we saw both of those things in that match, that they had to necessarily do a little bit of rotation, even though they've got the, I guess you would say, the benefit of 3 straight games at home. Right after the Austin match, they needed to rotate somehow, because no matter how you stack it up, Vancouver and Portland are teams that a Brian Schmetzer, a pragmatic Brian Schmetzer, is going to go, I'm going to need to have as close to full strength as we can for both of those, and we can probably rotate a bit. And they did rotate a bit, and they rotated Morris and Ferreira in, and it didn't end up making the difference that I think he went into the match thinking that it would. And you saw it all over his face when they cut to him during the broadcast.
I thought that was definitely going to make a difference. I thought that they made good subs. They made the right subs.
I was worried. I was not as worried as you, but I was definitely in the same zone of worry, to be fair. And that's the thing, is there were those worrying moments. And then there was that incredible dive save by the recently extended Stuver, which we'll talk about later. You saw Stuver show up big in ways that led to what Diego Rubio told us in the locker room afterward, which he refused any credit for his opening goal. That is what put Austin ahead initially. And he said, no, this is team effort. This was everybody. It was everybody working together. And to me, that is why they won the match. None of it was, oh, we're relying entirely on Mirto. We're relying entirely on this guy, entirely on this guy. And was it a CJ Faudré involved last minute goal that once again made it happen? Yes. But that would not have happened without all of the other pieces on the field. It was not just a 2-man sequence that made that happen. It was getting the ball upfield. It was as Nico Estevez was telling the folks at MLS Season Pass in the personage of the wonderful Andrew Wiebe, our best pal, going into halftime, he said, we've got to have longer possession. We have to have longer periods of possession. And that's what made the difference. Ferreira and Morris came on, and Austin focused on maintaining possession of the ball, and not just maintaining possession of the ball to get it upfield to maybe halfway throw something toward a shot that maybe was going to work. It was maintaining control of the ball until the conditions were right to actually press the attack.
Yeah. I find it kind of funny that Rubio talks about that being a team effort, even though like his goal was entirely on his own. He engineered it. He intercepted the ball and then he ran down the field and then took the shot.
Dude, and to me, this speaks to why he is such a solid locker room presence as well as an on-field presence. I think that the thing that I would hear around the fan base when Austin signed Diego Rubio is, why Diego Rubio? The dude's washed. Oh, he's old. Send him off to a farm upstate. We've seen serious, not just goal contribution, but squad contribution from this guy since the moment he got here, where he is mentoring younger players. He's working with academy kids. He just got named Legend of the Year in the 4ATX Foundation's Night in Verde Gala. I think this is incredibly well-deserved. And I enjoy when he bristles, in the rare times we're given certain players for availability. You got to shoot your shot and ask questions because you don't know when you're going to get to talk to him next. And I was genuinely curious what he was thinking his post-player career was going to look like. And he immediately took it as a crack and was like, what, man, you want me to retire? And I'm like, no, not at all. Not at all. Like, he's still got gas in the tank, especially on the deal that they've got him on. He is one of the best values on the roster by far. And I feel like Austin would behoove itself to continue making sure that his value is felt. And there's got to be some way to make that happen for a happy father of four who loves being here and loves playing for this club and whose fellow players love playing with him.
Right. I recall Matthew Pollard, who witnessed him in Colorado, who is one of the prime forces behind Burgundy Wave, described him as a salty mother when he first came to the club. And certainly he can be that, but he's so nice and he's so fun and so friendly in the locker room. Like you just want to hug him.
He's an escape valve with these MLS refs who all know him and all know him really well. And he really is a good stalking horse, is the metaphor that I would put out there, is that if you know that the ref is going to be watching that Diego Rubio getting up to his antics again, he's not watching what Danny Pereira is doing. They're not watching what Owen Wolf is doing over on the side. It is something that Felipe Martin's got that kind of credit for being the lead poop houser on the team. But what Diego Rubio does to me is definitely an order of magnitude of levels above that, where he is very good at drawing that attention, drawing the eye of the ref when it's needed so that other guys can get away with other stuff. That is what he is. So it's easy to just throw it all into the poop housing channel, but there's a fine art to it. And that's really what I admire in his style of play more than anything.
Yeah. Anything else from Seattle, or do we want to move on to the future?
It was solid. It was good, man. I feel like the team that showed up big in Seattle and that I think is buoyed by that result, I think that they could go to RSL away and once again defy some expectations. So let's talk about RSL, Phil.
With a little bit of rotation. Yeah. So we learned some things. We learned that Guillermo Biru is dealing with a knee thing, but he should be ready to go. It sounds like Mikel Dessler, they're going to be more conservative with him, quote unquote. So I would expect him to not make the trip. He said Robert Taylor was definitely going to be in the squad. So I would say it's going to be Taylor for Dessler, and they're going to bring everybody else that they had.
And Phil, in that late breaking info specific to Mikel Dessler, he is listed as out with a hip injury for this match. So one would expect he is not making the trip to RSL. A similar kind of thing that I expect is what they're doing here is resting him and, you know, burning whatever gas he's got in the tank next Wednesday if he is available. Because as we saw previously, we had him sit out and then he showed up for the Cup semifinal.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be there on Wednesday.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. So I would expect another healthy dose of John Gallagher in this game. I want to throw a couple of profiles your way. Okay. So I'm going to tell you about three RSL players. I'm going to give you some statistics and I'm going to ask you what you think they have in common.
Oh man, Phil
Okay.
making me do math. Okay, all right, just for you.
I'm doing the math. You're just coming up
Okay,
with the connections.
I'm just
Okay.
admiring the math. I can do that.
Okay. Player A, 6 matches, 0 goal contributions, 3 yellow cards. Player B, 4 matches, 1 goal, 1 red card. And player C has not played yet. Who am I describing?
You're describing players for Real Salt Lake, Phil.
Yes, I am describing RSL summer signings. Ron Cruz, 0 goal contributions in 6 matches. I
Okay.
know this well because he's in my Verde baseball team. I picked him
Oh
up
no.
thinking that, oh, somebody needs to score on this team. Clearly, it's going to be him. Victor Olatunji is the one with the goal on the red card. That red card happened in the waning moments in the first 4-1 loss to LAFC. And then Marcus Sobrano is the young player that they picked up who has not played yet. On paper, initially, it looked like, yeah, RSL really made some moves. They're going to maybe get themselves into the playoffs. And that hasn't really happened. Of course, Diego Luna's still on this team, but this was a team at the start of the season that was having big question marks at striker, and they're still there. I believe Luna still leads the team in goals.
So
And he's a midfielder.
jumping back to my Austin's remaining opponents piece, the thing that I pointed to was their back-to-back matches against LAFC. The now Son Heung-min, Denny Bouanga dynamic duo revived LAFC.
Yeah. We saw those 2 goals, by the way, those 2 incredible goals, this hit and then the Bouanga Son interplay while interviewing Murdo Azumi in the locker room. They had it on the TV there. And I'm holding my mic out. I'm looking over at the screen. You got these guys in 2 weeks. I think I might have said that to Brad. Or actually, I think maybe we just said that to Cam. I just remember thinking, oh man, this is going to be, of course, they're probably not going to be,
they're going to be
involved in that match in
They're
2 weeks because international break. But but still,
Yeah.
it's like if they face each other in the playoffs, boy, howdy.
But look, to me, it's all about the here and now, and it's about what that did to the RSL that Austin is going to play this weekend. And those were rough games. Those were hard playing games for RSL. And we've seen what happens when a team on a heater really wallops an MLS team back to back. As well as RSL showed up in some ways, they really got played off the field in the last game. And even though they're at home, they're fighting for position in the table. They're in a more unenviable position than Austin is. I feel like that combined with the summer signings not hitting takes me back to what Austin summer signings did they get. And I feel like, to me, the conventional wisdom on MLS summer signings is that those are signings that are headed toward the following season, or maybe you get lucky, or maybe you spend. Is the rumor something like 30 mil is what they paid to get Son at LAFC? Something in
that neighborhood. Yeah.
Something in that neighborhood is what people would expect, right? You better hit if you're paying that big of a transfer fee for that kind of a generational talent. RSL's trio of guys, it'll be crazier things have happened, but I would be shocked to see those 3 guys suddenly show up and show big. Diego Luna is going to show up, and he always shows up, and I have no doubt about him. But I really feel like Austin is hitting them at a point where they are trying to get their heads right and figure out how or if they are definitely making it into the playoffs, because they could hit this end of the season skid and be out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. So, yeah, I mean, their top 3 scorers right now, all midfielders. There's Luna, there's Gozo, there's Gonzalez. Willie Agata has 2 goals for this team in 19 appearances so far this season. And he was theoretically supposed to be the first striker solution that they came up with. I did an article on Tuesday looking at the math and Austin's ability to get past 45 points with this game, which of course doesn't work out every year, but what we hold is the magic threshold of getting to the playoffs. Generally, if you get to 45 points, you get there. Last year, I believe you needed 47 to get there. That is something that Austin can get to with a win here on Saturday. Real Salt Lake max can get to 46 points. They're on 34 right now with 4 games. They desperately need this win. If they have any kind of desire to get into the playoffs, if they have any kind of hope to get into the playoffs, this is a game where they're going to be gunning for a win. And that concerns me a little bit, but at the same time, Stuver's talking about the importance of this game because if you win, you get in the playoffs. That's good momentum heading into Wednesday. He even admitted that the focus is on Wednesday, but the proverbial, you got to take it one game at a time, play who's in front of you, blah, blah, blah. But they can actually do some good things in this game if they win to propel them into that match on Wednesday. I think they're going to be up for it regardless of the results and regardless of what happens. And there is a scenario that we laid out, a plausible scenario in which Austin could get to the playoffs, even losing this game, right? So let me run through those real quick, that scenario. Can you see Colorado losing to Minnesota?
I could. Weekend? I very much could, Phil.
Could you see San Jose drawing or losing to San Diego?
Any day of the week.
Okay. And then Houston drawing or losing to Nashville. And we will get into Nashville in a second where they've been lately, but I still think that's possible.
I think that's totally possible. Like both possible, and plausible. And I think toward the likely end of things, the more likely end of things.
Yeah. If all that happens, Austin gets in playoff regardless of what they do on Saturday. So
that. And the thing I want to highlight that you said that I think you're dead on about is RSL in desperation mode, any team in desperation mode. Look, St. Louis at home, Austin will be coming off of, in theory, winning the U.S. Open Cup for the first time in club history, or the alternative, which we don't talk about because we're on team narrative.
At least they made a finals.
St. Louis, here's what a St. Louis on October 4th has to play for. Their transfer values, where they go next, their futures as footballers. Same kind of thing.
They have an elimination scenario this weekend.
Yeah, like they have an elimination scenario this weekend, and if it goes the wrong direction for them, what do they have to play for? They don't have playoffs. All those players want to keep playing soccer professionally and for as much money as possible. And to me, RSL is in a similar boat of, sure, they've absolutely got to show up against Austin to make the playoffs, but they've also got to show up to figure out where various guys on that team, and this is every MLS team, a certain chunk of those guys are not going to be on that team next year. Happens every year, happens in every league, right? There is that to contend with, the chaos potential of you don't know who is going to show up and have the game of their life, score a worldie from midfield, and do something crazy, and then have a terrible next 3 matches.
Sure. Yeah. Could very well happen. Again, I don't know where I feel on this one just because of all the weird intangibles. Dessler out doesn't certainly help them. I imagine there's going to be other rotation. I don't know what they're going to come in with this game with versus what RSL. I know what RSL is going to do. RSL is going to be pushing as hard as they can for a win, and they'll certainly field the best players they can.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels bad cheering the team that you're following winning a game or being advantageously positioned because the other team gets an own goal. It's ungentlemanly, but call me not a gentleman all you want. But having seen Austin go through the 23 and 24 seasons, I think that it is totally fine to empathetically feel for a team of guys who are 1,000 times better than Chicho Arango, who no longer plays for RSL, getting donked out of the playoffs, which I'm going to go ahead and set my expectation that Austin win this game. They may not win it clean. They may not win it pretty, and it may be an Arsenal-style 1-0 thing. But I think the words of Brendan Hines-Ike in the tunnel at Frisco still ring in my ears. Sometimes the H in Brendan Hines-Ike stands for hangry. And these guys are hangry for these late season points in a way that, sure, they are definitely prioritizing the Open Cup final, but I don't think that they are going to do that at the expense of the in-league momentum that they want to keep up. I think they are focused on not just showing up and doing as much as they need to. I think they want to win every remaining game in the regular season.
Yeah. So you know what that means?
What's it mean, Phil?
My dream of a playoff game with 8th place RSL hosting San Jose 9th place is probably not going to happen. I kind of feel like both those teams are going to miss the playoffs, and that's a
too.
shame because that would be like maximum chaos
Well, that's the thing
in a
is,
play-in match. But again, like you had the seasons that you had also,
yeah.
and Dallas is coming on, so they're going to probably find their way into the playoffs.
I will very happily say this, and this is not as disrespect to Bruce Arena, but I feel like he deserves some disrespect, just objectively, the way that he talks to people and treats people. I have to say that what I'm about to say is not disrespect to him as a person, but he has not been the magic ointment for San Jose. And
No.
I think what initially at the beginning of the season, Austin fans were dreading, Austin finishing the season away at San Jose, is going to be a decision day away at San Jose, who are thoroughly eliminated from the playoffs and in full absolute chaos mode, looking to do revenge damage on Austin players that better watch out.
Yeah. MLS whisperer no longer.
Yeah. 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 MLS stopped listening to those whispers.
Also, poor Revs fans who had that weird Arena departure and then got Caleb Porter, who was no longer coaching that team, who was on the hottest of hot seats for most of the season, and then finally got off here a couple weeks ago.
1,000-yard stare Porter. So should we go ahead and look ahead to the big match of the season that, going back to the beginning of the season, I think due credit goes to people like Bradley Tillery, various others. I can count myself in this number who were desperately wishing and hoping to see an Open Cup final hosted in Austin, Texas. I still can't believe it's happening.
I know, it's amazing. So we don't have any other MLS coaches to besmirch, right?
No, but I mean,
let's besmirch Nashville's record. Okay, we saw Spinal Tap a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
you remember the Shark Sandwich album had just a 2-word review. Sandwich,
yes,
which Spinal Tap questioned. I think the record equivalent of a sandwich is what Nashville has done over the last 7 games, which is 3 losses, a win in the middle there, and then 3 more Texas toast size losses on the other side of that. That's not good. They had a big blowout over Orlando in there, but then they also lost to Orlando subsequently. So that is a pretty interesting kind of set of circumstances, which worries me. And again, they do have Houston. So again, Houston, not a terrible team, obviously, but could be a confidence builder on the way to hosting or visiting Austin in that Open Cup final on Wednesday. But yeah, it's wild. I want to run through this real quick just because it is pretty staggering what they've done.
Roll through it
up here one second.
As you're pulling that up, the thing I want to mention is I think BJ Callahan is a hell of a coach. I think they have a hell of a roster, but they have not gone through the campaign unbruised and unbattered. And Austin is, on the whole, overall, healthier than the whole of Nashville's roster. And that last match against Orlando made me think that this is a very beatable team that definitely wants to win the Open Cup. I've said this before, I'll say it again, but they've also got to fight a really hard remaining battle in the East, which is not as fungible to me of a table as what we see in the West. So Phil, take us through sandwich making with Nashville.
Okay. Do keep in mind though, that before this happened,
Nashville
had a 9-game unbeaten streak and had won or tied 11 of their past 12, only lost one of those past 12. And that was a 2-1 loss to Miami, which sure, that's going to happen, right? But since that 1-0 win over Toronto on July 19th, lost 1-0 to San Diego. So no shame in that. Lost 3-1 to St. Louis. Shame in that. Lost 2-1 to New York City Football Club. So yeah, okay, that's fine. Then they walloped Orlando 5-1. They lost 1-0 to Atlanta, who has had one of the most disappointing seasons of any MLS team, just given the expectations of where they were going to be this season versus where they actually are. Lost to Cincinnati 2-1. Okay, that's going to happen. Cincinnati's a good team. And then they lost subsequently to Orlando 3-2. So that's the kind of form that, after being very, very hot, Nashville is heading into this week with. So either they got to get themselves right in a hurry if they want to have hopes of winning the Open Cup, or maybe they have just hit a skid at this point in the season. And again, they're like 10th in the Supporter Shield race, but the East is incredibly tight. They're down to 7th right now on 50 points.
Yeah.
Columbus also has 50 points in 8th, who has also had a weird tailspin of late. Chicago's right below that with 45. Between 4th and 8th, there's only 3 points separating those teams. That's going to be interesting just to see how that shakes out, where Nashville eventually ends up, because at the same time, obviously, they're thinking about a final, they're thinking about a trophy, but also they've got to think about where they're going to finish in the table. For Austin, as we talked about in that article on Tuesday, we're pretty much looking at 5th through 7th at this point. Outside chance they're going to get 4th. Outside chance they're going to drop into the play-in match. Like very, very like infinitesimal, like less than 1% chances of that. Most likely they're going to stay in 6th, or they'll bump up to 5th, go down to 7th. And again, top 4 is going to fluctuate a little bit. They could draw the Minnesota card. They could draw the Vancouver card. We're going to have to see. But Nashville, their playoff places are very, very like up in the air right now.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to face Cincinnati? Do you want to face Miami? Do you want to face Philadelphia? That's what they're looking at in the first round. That sounds tough.
Yeah. And I've mentioned this on the show before. BJ Callahan has a lot of Open Cup experience. As an assistant coach, he has been in serious Open Cup playoff knockout round craziness. That the whole thing is a knockout round tournament, right? But
sure,
the final, once you get to the quarters, that's when the Open Cup becomes the competition that those of us who love it as much as we do, and admittedly, some of us like yourself, much more well-versed in a longer thread of it because we had teams to follow, whether it's a neutral or not. For me, the thing that is so exciting about it is what I think makes BJ Callahan dangerous. And roster v. roster, Austin is definitely healthier, but Nashville's healthy guys, you've got guys like Sam Surridge who are having an incredible season. You've got injuries that are depleting them from some of their best guys. You've got some of their guys that are still good, but they're not showing up big, showing up like crazy. And if you're not working together on the kind of trend line that they've been on, can you absolutely show up and shock the home host team in a cup final? Absolutely. To me, I think this is really going to hinge on the kind of dynamic that we saw early in the season, first time Austin played San Diego, when coach v. coach, Nico Estevez, knew the moves Mikey Varas was going to make and did not have to deal with any of his own cards falling out of his hand on the way to anticipating those moves. That's what I think more than anything is going to win this match. And sure, there are plenty of people out there who still would just love to have another excuse to say, this is why to fire the coach. And I know wanting to pull the fire the coach lever is, for some people, a reflex like sneezing when you look at the sun. But I feel like this coach, why this name among names you wouldn't believe, I think that the specific dynamic that he has offered in terms of keeping the team together through various periods of adversity earlier in the season, weathering losing Brendan Vasquez to the ACL tear, and picking these guys back up and keeping them moving forward together. To me, the story is too good for the soccer gods not to bestow this upon Austin, but Austin still has to earn it. They cannot show up complacent. They all have to be firing on 1,000 cylinders and pick each other up when they notice that somebody is checked out or has had a brain fart or something like that. That's to me, that is the story of anticipating this match.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to point out is, you mentioned Sam Surridge, and obviously he's had an incredible season, but we've gotten this revitalized Hany Mukhtar this year as well. So clearly you remember him from the MVP race in 2022, right? He is having his best season since that MVP season. So 2022, he had 23 goals and 11 assists, which is absurd, right? 23, again, kind of a playmaking midfielder, 15 goals, no assists. That's weird. Last year, 8 goals, 10 assists. So that is first only single digit goal season since 2020, when he first got to the league and only played half a season. This year, he's got 15 goals and 11 assists, and there's still 3 games to go. So we're seeing a player that A lot of people, I think, were worried that he was on a downhill slide. After all, he is 30 years old, right? He has hit that magic number. But still, he's having his best season in 3 years, right? The combination of him and Surridge, soccer-wise, did a really interesting kind of little take based on Sun and Bawanga and watching them about best duos in MLS. And they said Sun and Bawanga and Surridge Mukhtar. And that's pretty much it. You could say maybe Evander and Denki, but it doesn't seem like they're really dependent on each other the way that Sun and Bawanga were seeing, certainly the way that Surridge and Mukhtar have been this season. And that's a big concern. We've seen moments where Mukhtar has absolutely burned Austin, and then we've also seen Brad Stuver save a penalty against Mukhtar in a game that Austin ended up winning in Nashville. There's a lot of rich history there, and I feel like he's going to figure in centrally somehow in that match. Either he's going to do something that helps Nashville get over the top, or something will go wrong for him. Stuver saves him maybe at an opportune time. I feel like I don't want to say that he's an antagonist because he's a nice guy and all that. I do feel like he's going to loom large in this match.
Yeah.
So even though
I
he
agree.
didn't grow up around the US Open Cup, obviously, but I think he's going to sense the gravity and importance for sure.
This very much, I mean, it feels like a gentlemanly duel. Everybody wants to behave above board, but somebody got to get shot. Okay.
Yeah.
Like somebody's got to get got.
Not
okay?
literally.
Not literally. Not literally. Okay. I'm gonna stray away from my metaphor. Just go feelings and vibes wise. I think there is a great opportunity to have a memorable US Open Cup final that doesn't have to devolve into dirty underhandedness. I like the vibes of both of these teams playing with each other. I had a nice chat with Andrew Wiebe at a charity fundraiser that Brad Stuver was headlining for Chiari, and one of the things that he zeroed in on that I really liked the way that he put it is that he said, man, I just really like this matchup. It's two teams that it means a lot in important ways for both of them. First pro sports title in the state of Tennessee's history. First pro sports title possible for the city of Austin. Right. Dueling music cities. It just, you got to look at this on paper and say that if it doesn't go Austin's way, man, it could be a side from the East that really didn't deserve to get to this level. But Nashville has had those moments this season that they deserve to be in this final. You can't say that about them. And you can't say that they have dirty, underhanded tactics that are designed to literally hurt Austin players, as we have heard rumblings that other locker rooms are told when you play Austin, hurt them. Just physically hurt them. However you get away with it, physically hurt them. These guys they're going to get down in the dirt at the end of the day. I think the vibes are going to carry us into momentary Valhalla.
All right, let's close it out. We mentioned Brad Stuver a few times during this, including the benefit that he did on Friday. Unfortunately, I was out of town. I was still at that conference in El Paso, so I was not able to attend. Otherwise, I know that I would have necessarily tested my cornhole skills, but I did want to drop by. Kudos to those of you who did and helped out that amazing cause and the work that Brad does. Brad Stuver, we learned just before the press conference happened on Thursday, and of course, Stuver was the player for this, 2-year extension. So he is now going to be with the club potentially through 2028. It's a 2-year extension, so he is extended through 2026 and 2027 with a 2028 option year. Of course, in MLS, all the options are club options. He would be 37 at the end of that contract. But again, like I said in the article, age is just a number. He's playing very, very well right now. Just 5 saves away from breaking Tony Meola's 5-season record for most saves in a 5-year span, regular season matches. 615 now, has to get beyond 620 to get the record. Still an amazing number to get to, but he's got obviously 4 games to do that in. I feel like he's going to get 6 saves in those 4 games.
It feels to me like he's gonna break that record. I think that he, in a league where everybody, the players and the public, know what everybody makes, we don't know the numbers involved, but you got to assume that they ponied up something to show some appreciation to the man who has stood on his head in multiple dimensions across space and time during the deepest depths and the highest highs of what the club's been through. It is great news for a very deserving player. And what I would hope that it portends is a sign that they are going to also reward solid play, solid work by other guys on the team. That you look at those salaries, and on the one hand, as Roto told us in his press conference, they have no GAM. We got the magic GAM number. They got 44K left. Now that GAM arbitrage over the international slot makes sense because it was for roster compliance reasons, as we can now very cleanly do the math on.
Thank you, Revs.
So thanks to the Revs, thanks and condolences once again to the Revs. But to me, this Stuver extension, what I hope it portends is proper reward for some performance through adversity, where you've seen guys like Owen Wolf and John Gallagher playing their feet off of their legs. Some would say unreasonably, but look, this is the roster they got, and this is the guys that they got. And this is the roster that may very well get this team to a U.S. Open Cup championship. So, yeah, I hope it portends good things for other guys who show up big through the end of the season and into the theoretical playoffs.
And the one thing that I also want to say about Stuver, in addition to everything else that makes him great, obviously great between the sticks, great as a community activist, and all the good works that he does, obviously humanitarian of the year considerations with people noticing what he's doing.
First MLS player who was even in contention for that Muhammad Ali award.
Yep. Yeah. Additionally, he is so thoughtful and so gracious with his time before the media. And typically we'll get him pretty late into the half hour that we get in the locker room. So typically Moisés will go into the locker room, get quotes. I'll be in with Nico and some of the other journalists. And then when Nico wraps up, and Nico can sometimes be verbose, so sometimes it's 20-ish minutes, we get to go in the locker room and there's 8-10 minutes left. So we get who we can get. And at that point, Moisés has already gotten quotes from some of the people who wanted to get out early. Brad's usually hanging around pretty late, and there's always, be it win, lose, or draw, there's always really good, thoughtful context that comes from him. Like, you can rely on him to really break down aspects of the game. And it's not just about the goalkeeping. It's all aspects, really. They're definitely a team. They're definitely focused as a team. But his attention to what they're doing offensively, and again, he often will be involved in that from the start, right? It's just really nice to have somebody who is that reliable, that thoughtful, and that you're going to get a good quote from Brad Stuver, even if it's a game where nobody wants to talk, which happens sometimes. To just add on to that, the additional nuance that he gives us, even when it is a trend line of bad results, that sort of thing, he always digs deep on the field, and he always digs deep in the locker room and in media availabilities talking to us to try to give us something more, a little bit more color, a little bit more flavor of the things that we know that these players and coaches, there is a cone of silence. There is a gentleman's agreement around some conversations where they'll allude to, there was a players meeting. We had some very blunt words for each other, that sort of thing. And without getting into this guy griped with this guy and this guy beefed with this guy and they got past it and now we're moving forward, that kind of thing, Brad always makes that extra effort, knowing what it is that we're looking for and giving us as much as he can. Yeah. I mean, there's some times where things have not gone well, and we get responses from Brad that we know he's trying to come up with cogent things to say. We know that he's not pleased with how things have gone, but there's always substance to what he says. And that's a tough skill. Like, that's not something that comes naturally to every player. A lot of these players are focused on the physical. Certainly they're thoughtful people, but in terms of being able to actually express that in a way that works for media, it's nice to have people that you can rely on consistently for that. And this team does have a few of those players for sure, and Brad is definitely one of those.
Phil, we've got something that I just realized we forgot to mention that I should bring up. And I feel like something as momentous as what's happening this weekend requires me to invoke one of the great songs that you hear ring out anytime you spend any time on the Las Vegas Strip. And that's shots, 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 shots. Because this weekend, Los Verdes is hosting a watch party for the RSL match. And at this watch party, there will be shots, 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 by which I mean a Walgreens flu shot clinic.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So Walgreens is going to have a Vax clinic set up at Fast Friends down in the 78744. We've got a start time of 7 o'clock, kickoff time for the game, 8:30. So if you have insurance, bring your insurance card, but they will also have vouchers for people who are underinsured or uninsured. So if you want that flu shot, just come out, get your flu shot, and hang out and watch a great game. It's an all ages space. One of the big things LV prides itself in hosting their watch parties. There's an indoor screen at the downstairs bar, free parking on site. They've got a kitchen. So make it out to Fast Friends this weekend, get jabbed, and maybe get an opportunity to see Austin FC do some jabbing of their own.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds like a good time. It is way down south. So if you're in that part of the world, that's a good, convenient thing for you to go to. You know what else Fast Friends is, though?
What, Phil?
You know what else Fast Friends is?
How?
28 minutes from my house.
How did I know you were going to tell us how many minutes from your house it is?
You could probably triangulate where I live for like all the watch parties and the minutes from the house. It is an 8:30 kick, obviously, Mountain Time. Go figure. They adhere to their time zones. That's weird. But so again, do plan if you're gonna make a night of it. Obviously, game around that, pace yourselves. But yeah, I mean, you can get a good watch party in, and then yeah, again, getting your flu vaccine, that is a very important thing. I'm actually going to do that alongside my daughter later this week to have support for her as she does that. Get your vaccines. They're important. They're a good idea. Got my COVID one already. Got my shingles one too, because
fun.
Yeah. That was a bear, but I also have a friend who had shingles and he described it as the worst pain in his life. So
yeah,
I figure, you know what? I can be miserable for a few hours. That's okay. I can do that.
The one other thing I guess I wanted to throw in there and mention, we don't have a lineup yet for Austin FC2's match tonight as we record this against Portland Timbers 2, the Toombers, as I call them, which hasn't caught on. Nobody likes that. People do like
I like it.
People like Minnesota, though. Minnesota has caught on.
I like Toombers a lot more than Minnesota.
Yeah, Toombers, it's the Cascadia thing. That's what it is. It's your Cascadia bias showing, Phil. But Austin FC2 fighting, they really need to make these very last games count if they're going to make it into the playoffs, because they did not get the result they needed last weekend. Remains to be seen whether the Next Pro guys are going to make it. And I'm going to say that it is 6:20 p.m. as we record this. We do not have a lineup yet. Okay. Makes me wonder who made the plane to Salt Lake. And if we see some conspicuous absences from the second team lineup due to rotational needs, which, hey, it sucks, but that's what developmental leagues are for. And if the players are good enough to play for the first team is always the priority.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So by the time you're listening to this on Saturday, you'll know all that happened. So we don't at the time. We don't have the ability to go into the future yet. Otherwise, we would tell you what happened Wednesday.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.